How's it going, YouTube? Just before we get too involved putting the boot into the South Africans, because we will, I just want you to enjoy this calm before the storm. Please like, subscribe and share the video. And if you're new around here, we're about to go in deep. South Africans, right? Them and their infinite wisdom, they decided, nah, we're not going to take part in the Rugby Championship this year. Here's what they cited. Let's start off with player welfare. A couple of weeks back, the South Africans, they had their first test match, so to speak. It was the gold versus the green. It was the biggest anticlimax there has ever been in world rugby. I get that they are concerned, but their concerns aren't what the real concerns are. Here's what happened. What they did was they went and they played this match. They thought to themselves, ooh, we can't very well go down to the Rugby Championship and play a game of rugby when we're performing like that. Quite right too. One of your teams didn't even score a try. That was pretty ordinary. Now, I get player welfare, but here's how I see it. Over in New Zealand, over the past week, there have been a grand total of 0 deaths. In Australia, 7. Not ideal, but not the worst in the world. In South Africa, they had 823. Yeah, it's our players you're concerned about. Here's the way I see it. If you guys weren't so concerned about player welfare, you would have been over there weeks ago. Look at the RGs. What's their excuse? Or hang on, what's your excuse for the RGs being over in Australia already? They've been there, they've done their quarantine, and now they're training. Sorry South Africa, but every excuse that you've come up with, it doesn't quite meet the COVID test. South Africa, they even went and cited government restrictions. The government cleared them weeks ago. The problem being their high performance team. Now their high performance team, they came up with this magical figure of stating that their test players need 500 minutes of rugby before they can even play. Well, let's do some maths. Their competitions over in South Africa, they started last week, which gives them a grand total of 5 weeks worth of rugby play. Now, 5 times 80, that's right. But what did they go and do? They went, well, hang on, 400 minutes. 400 minutes, that's quite a bit, really. What we should probably do is say 500 minutes, that way we're outside of the circle, and then we can't go and play. Makes perfectly good sense to me. Excuse me. Now, for the foreseeable future, the South Africans, the Springboks, they're going to be playing their club rugby in Europe. I think they've made you soft already. Traditionally, you were the hard men of the rugby world. Now you're making up every excuse under the sun why not to compete. Alright, your green versus gold, it was crap. Yeah, it was crap. But there's no excuse why not to compete against some of the toughest. You look at every Rugby World Cup in history. All of the winners, bar one, have come from the Rugby Championship competition. There's a tad disheartening. To be perfectly fair, the rugby that I wanted to discuss with you today was the Bledisloe Cup. Now obviously, the last Bledisloe Cup, the result wasn't quite what we were all expecting. We were hoping for a bit more than a 16-all draw. That being said though, I want to take my hat off to Rico Ioane. The lad, he obviously could appreciate that it was Michael Hooper's 100th test. So obviously what he was doing was trying to keep the game tight. That's why he dropped the ball. There's a touch of class, that son. Fantastic job. I've always been a huge proponent of Australian rugby. I've been in chat groups even up until the end of last year suggesting that the Australians, they could always pull one out the bag because they can. They're Australians. They've got the team. They've got everything that they need at their disposal in order to be successful. I'd be lying if I was to say to you guys, I haven't had a touch of doubt over the past week. I even said to a bunch of mates of mine on the weekend, last weekend before the test match, that I had a doubt. But the way I looked at last weekend's game was the same way I look at like traditional autumn international test matches. When the Northern Hemisphere teams come down in the middle of the Super Rugby season, to play a 3-test series. The thing about tomorrow's game, because I'm recording this on Saturday because I have a quiet patch because everyone in my family has gone out for a dog walk. What I'm really looking forward to is our new meat. We've got that Tupo Vai. He's a, judging by the name, I'm going to suggest Tongan. Mobile as all hell, tall as all hell, hard to stop, belongs in the locks. That dude is awesome. Shannon Frizzell. Look, I've watched a lot of New Zealand rugby even though I live over here. And that Shannon Frizzell, it escapes me why that bloke hasn't been an All Black for years. The man is just a tank on legs. He's really wicked to watch. Another awesome performer for me on last weekend's game was Caleb Clark. He's, I think, I could be wrong, I think it's Ronnie Clark's son. Another area of concern that I had from last week's game was our back line. I think what Rico was doing was, in order to keep it close, was he went hunting for the ball a touch too much. But this weekend we've got Jack Goodhue at 12 and Anton Leonard-Brown at 13. Yeah, I'll be surprised if you guys score a try out wide. I think you've got pain and suffering coming your way. But then, I would. Anyway, we have one more Bledisloe Cup match coming up next weekend, and that one's going to be played in Australia. Jeez, quietly gotta concede. Not for the game, not for the players, but for the country. I guess Sansa, they were gambling. They were really gambling. Because in South Africa, just last week, they had 823 deaths related to COVID-19. Whereas the Argentinians, they had 2,498. That's a few. I mean, even up here in the UK, things aren't brilliant. They're far from brilliant. The UK is run by a clown, a literal clown. And we've got 750 deaths this past week. So, there is cause for concern. Anyway, Jesus. So, if you are new around here, last week I didn't do an art piece because I didn't have time. This week I decided to do an art piece and dedicate it to Australia. When I was trying to think of a superhero or a superhero character that reflects what it is that Australia is about to experience, couldn't really go past Thanos. I like Thanos. I like how much of a wanker he was in the MCU. And Australia, yeah, you managed to pull one out the bag halfway anyway, last weekend. It took me a wee bit longer than initially anticipated, largely because I didn't really know how I wanted to colour him in. I am a fan of the way that he looks in the movies, but at the same time I was always a huge fan of him in the comics. So what I did was I kind of married the two. So I was using his movie outfit, but I coloured him in with a comic style. You'll see here. think what I might do is spend a bit more time on his swords. I think that's it for this week. Largely because I've run out of things to say and I want to finish my coffee. So.